Hello everyone. In this particular video will be doing 4 readathon wrap-ups. I will not go into detail about the synopsis of the books or anything like that. I will just tell you what I read for what prompts. So let's go ahead and get into this. So the first one I'm going to talk about is hosted by Completely Melanie. So Melanie from Completely Melanie. The co-hosts are Paige from Pages with Paige and Kim from Whimsical Narratives. I will list all of these channels in the description box. So I am talking about Seasonathon-Academy. The group read was The Obsidian Tower by Melissa Caruso. I did not get to that book. I would have liked to. It sounds interesting, but I did not. Okay, so there's one core class I did not do, and we'll come up to that. So the first class we had to do was English 2010. This is to read any book and post a review. The book I used for this prompt was Black Butler Volume Number 2. I posted the review on Goodreads, and then I posted a picture of it on Instagram as well. So I'm counting that, and I do that right when I finish the book. So this is written by Jona. This is a manga. I gave this one 4 stars and it was 177 pages. The next class that I had to do, this is one I failed. I did not get to this one. And that was English 2130, an American classic or an American banned book to read. Did not get to it. Okay, moving on. We had to do one of the natural sciences with a lab category. And of course, we had to post a review for all of these. So the classes that I did do, so I'm going to tell you because you didn't have to do all of them. I did BIOL, so Biology 1050, Life on Earth. So a book set in the real world. I went with Teacher of the Year. This is a queer male-male romance. This is Marvin. He is a kindergarten teacher, and this is Olin. I wanted to say Brian, and I'm like, that is not right. Olin, and he is an engineer. And his daughter is in his class, and his daughter is on the back here, and she is such a cutie patootie. So this is a male-male romance. A lot of sweet moments, but it does get very spicy, so just be aware of that. And this is book number 1 in the Teachers in Love series. I had a great time with this one. 4 stars, 301 pages, written by M.A. Wardle, in case I did not say that. But yeah, it was great. And then I went above and beyond because I did more than one natural science class. So I did Chemistry 1110, and this was General Chemistry number 1, and this was to read a romance. For this one, I did a young adult romance published in the early 80s. I went with Double Love by Francine Pascal. I gave this one 4 stars. It was 112 pages. This is book number 1 in the Sweet Valley High series. Now, this book was not written by Francine Pascal. The world was created by Francine Pascal, but the book is actually written under Kate William. And that person is not real. That is a name that is used to represent a bunch of various people who are ghostwriters for this series. So I don't know who actually wrote it. The next one I completed was Geology, G-E-O-L. Let's see, 1110. Physical Geology, yeah, Geology right there. Book set in nature. I went with The Embers of Phoenix by A.J. Blackburn. I gave this one 4 stars. It was 223 pages. This is set mostly in the wilderness, as this is a shifter, why choose romance. And the Ember that we are following, who is one of the wolves of a pack, is on the run just because she's trying to clear things up, and then realizes she's being chased. And there's hunters, like werewolf hunters. They want to eliminate werewolves, and very steamy, very steamy. It was good steam, very steamy. And yeah, a lot of it was in the woods. So anyway, moving on is physics, and I did the physics class 1030, and that was general physics, and that was to read a science fiction. I went with a book that was only 8 pages. I went with the prequel to the Murderbot Diaries series written by Martha Wells, and that book is called Compulsory. 8 pages. I gave it 4 stars, and I could tell you from that prequel, I am so looking forward to continuing this series. Now, when will I pick up book number 1 in the series? Who knows, but eventually. Okay, moving on. The next mandatory class was to select one from the non-Western or culture categories. I fulfilled 4? Yeah, 4 of those classes. I only needed to do 1. I did 4. Okay, so the first option was ANTH 1500, Anthropology Today, the Arc of Humanity. So read a book from a culture other than your own. I went with A Kind of Spark by L. McNoll. This is set in Scotland, so Scottish culture. Yeah, that's all I'm going to go with. This is a middle grade, and we're following a middle grader who is autistic. And I will say this, I love how she compares how she, like in modern days, if the witch hunt and witch trials took place in modern days, someone like her or like myself who are autistic and we are different than neurotypical people, we would be the ones that would be hunted and ridiculed and burned at the stake for being different. So I like the comparisons that were made there. So A Kind of Spark by L. McNoll. I give this one 5 stars. Highly, 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 highly recommend. 176 pages. This was the September book selection for Autism Reads, which is the book club that I host, where we read a book every month by an author that is confirmed to be autistic. Elle McNoll is autistic. She is neurodivergent. And this was September's pick. And for October, so this month that I'm filming this, we are doing an adult read. So we do alternate, at least this year, adult, young adult, middle grade, and I'm planning on continuing that in 2025. Okay, and the link to that Discord is in the description box. Always. The next one I did was Geography 1030. This was World Geography, and this is to read a book set outside of the USA or the UK. I went with a book set in Japan, and that is The Complete Cheese Sweet Home Part 3. This was written by Konomi Kanata. This is translated from Japanese, and there are references there to some Japanese cities throughout this story that I did recognize. Like I think it said Tokyo or something like that, but that I did recognize as being a city in Japan. So that's how I know it is set in Japan. I gave this one 5 stars, 432 pages. We're following mostly the perspective of this cat named Chi, sometimes of the owners that have taken Chi in, but this is just great. So nice colored, beautiful illustrations. So highly recommend this series as well, especially if you love cats. The next one in this category that I did was History 2510. This is History of Epidemics. This is to read a book that involves a virus, a plague, etc. I went with Parasites by Meaghan Grant. Oh my gosh, I love this. I have loved every book written underneath Meaghan Grant. Now, Meaghan Grant is a pen name for Seanan McGuire. I read the first book in the Wayward series. I struggled with that one because it's more magical realism, and sometimes I struggle with magical realism. But underneath Meaghan Grant, it is a like sci-fi horror. Absolutely love this one. I gave this one 5 stars. It was 502 pages, and basically parasites are put into the body, and it just goes from there. So I'm still calling it, it's not contagious, but they do cause a mass panic. And that's all I'm going to say. And it's definitely tried to keep hush hush. Highly recommend this one too. I've got a lot of books that I highly recommend. Okay, the next category or class I did for this category is History 2820. This is Modern East Asia, and this is to read a book by an Asian author. For this one, I went with, making sure I grabbed the correct book, because I read 2 books in this series in September, but for this one I went with Volume 2 of A Man and His Cat by Fumi Sakurai, and I think this one's translated from Japanese as well. Most of the ones, if I do Asian, they're translated from Japan. Let's see. Yeah, first published in Japan in 2018, so this is translated from Japanese, so the author is Japanese as far as I know. Gave this one 4 stars. It was 144 pages. Like, if you love cats, which I do, you'll probably enjoy this series like I do too. The next mandatory class, and the last class that was mandatory, was FLNG. So 3120. This is Intermediate Foreign Language 3, and this is to read a book that was translated. Another book that I read that was translated from Japanese is this one, another cat manga, A Story of Seven Lives by Shirakawa Jin. Word of caution going into this, you do have animal cruelty, animal death, and human death, but from the perspective of a cat. Okay, so this is hard. I did cry in this, but ultimately I absolutely love this book. I love that it gave me all of the emotions. 5 stars, 439 pages, and the artwork is by the author as well. So the Shirakawa Jin wrote it and drew this manga series. So highly recommend. And those are the books that I read for Seasonathon. So I only have one class that I failed, that I did not complete. So that sucks. Just one class. I just ran out of time and could not fit a banned book in there. But let me know if you've read any of these books, and let's go ahead and move on to the next readathon. So Adventureathon, there's a couple of different, there are several different prompts. I'm just going to tell you what ones under which category I completed and what book was used to complete that prompt. So you have different paths. I didn't know what path to take, but I wanted to leave my options open. So I completed the prompts needed for all of the paths. So path number 1 is to read a book that has a map or set in a real world location. I read Black Butler Volume 2. This is actually set in London. At least this one is. There's some talk of Jack the Ripper in there. So I used this one. Prompt number 2 for path number 1 is food or drink on the cover. I went with Teacher of the Year. He's holding an apple. So there's that one. So path number 1, and that's by M.A. Wardle. Path number 1 is complete. Path number 2 is to read a book that has a map or set in a real world location. I went with Double Love, where it's created by Francine Pascal. The Sweet Valley High series are written by ghostwriters. So I went with this one. It is set in California in the US. Prompt number 2 for path number 2 is character's weapon of choice on the cover. I went with Sleigh Bells and Slaughter by Alina Jacobs. The weapon of choice to kill someone on this is fire, and there's fire on the cover, so I went with that one. Path number 3 is a book that, and this is the same prompt for all of them, has a map or set in a real world location. I went with A Kind of Spark, written by Elle McNoll. This is set in Scotland, so real world. And let's see, number 2 for prompt number 3 is it has mist, fog, smoke, or steam on the cover. I went with 4 Charming Spells by Lynn Cahoon. There is steam right there coming out of the teapot. So love this series. I can't recommend that enough. And then finally, path number 4 set in has a map or real world location. I went with Real World Location, A Story of Seven Lives by Shirakawa Jin. This is set in Tokyo, Japan. Okay. And then prompt number 2 for path number 4 is 50% or more of the cover is white or gray. I went with The Risk by S.T. Abbey. The edition I had is mostly white with black. So I think it's a little bit more than 50% white, at least on the cover that I saw. And then like 40% black and then red or something like that. So, but I would say it definitely qualifies. The next category is the mansion prompts. Number 1 is Parlor. This is to read a book where the prompt is, so Parlor, it's a sentient or a haunted house or a gothic read. Okay. I went with Horror Hotel. It's a haunted hotel. There are ghosts that haunt this hotel at this time. So this is written by 2 authors, Victoria Fulton and Faith McLaren. It was a fun book. Prompt number 2 is social gathering space. This is to read a book with a social gathering space in the book. I went with Bewitching the Vampire by Carrie Pulkinen. I don't remember what the gathering space was, but there was one in there, so it definitely fit. I just don't remember what it was. Oh, yes, I do. It was I had to think through the books. This is the one where the social gathering place of paranormal creatures, witches, vampires, werewolves, they gather at like this bar that's specially for them. Number 3 is study. This is to read a book where the character learns something. I went with Secrets, created by Francine Pascal. It says it was written by Kate William, but that is a fake name to symbolize that it was written by a ghostwriter. Secrets, character learns something. The character, I think of her as an evil twin. She's not really evil. She's just a snot, stuck up person full of herself. Narcissistic are the words that come to my mind for Jessica Wakefield in this book. Definitely has to learn some stuff in that book. The next prompt I fulfilled, I did not do kitchen. The next prompt I did do was receiving room, and this is to read a book with a single POV. I read the prequel to the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. I read compulsory. It was only 8 pages, so it was a very quick read, and I had a great time, and I look forward to starting this series at some point. Number 6, multi-purpose room. This is to read mixed media book or to do an immersion read with an audiobook, and that's what I did. So I physically read it and listened to the audiobook, and I did Show Us Who You Are by Elle McNull. So holograms of dead people or living, but yeah, a lot of dead people. Number 7, master bedroom. Read a book entirely in bed. I went with The Complete Cheese Sweet Home Part 3 by Konami Kanata. This is it was a manga. It's translated from Japanese, but now it's for us Americans, in graphic novel format, and read it all in bed one night. So, yep. Okay, the next prompt I did fulfill was, and I'm going to skip the ones I did not do, because there's a lot of prompts that you could do. You definitely don't have to do all of them. So the next one I did is guest room, and this is to read a friend pick. So for this book, I used it 2 different ways. One, I did it kind of like a random type generator for Suffer-a-thon, and then it also worked for a different readathon at some point where it was a random generator type prompt. And then I also added this as an option. I sent a text to my aunt and had her pick a book out of like 3 or 4 books. And this is the one she chose, so it fits a couple of different prompts. But friend pick, I'm going with my aunt picking this one, and that's Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is book number 2 in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. Number 10 is Alchemy Lab. This is to read a science like alchemy, chemistry, physics. And you can stretch so it has to have that, the book has to have that in there. And you can stretch it to potions, biology, and cooking. Biology, and I would say biology for this one. And I decided to go with Parasite by Mira Grant, as it's parasites and the human body. A lot of science in this. It's a sci-fi horror, and I loved this book. I love things written underneath Mira Grant. So, yep. Okay, so those are those ones. Continuing on with Adventureathon, there was the creature feature bingo. And so there were 9 prompts on this, and you could do anything from werewolf, zombie, mummy, eldritch horror, headless horseman, swamp or /body bog creature, Frankenstein, ghost, vampire. So as long as the book has one of those creatures, then you could do that. I only got 1 prompt, and that is The Embers of Phoenix by A.J. Blackburn. This is a werewolf shifter Why Choose romance, and it's book number 1 in a series. So The Embers of Phoenix contains werewolves, and so that's what I went with for that one. Next is the Dullahan prompts, and for this one, the option underneath Choose Your Skills, I did Black Soul, so a book with a black cover. I went with Rotten Fruit by D.W. Cole, short story, and yeah, this was fun. Definitely mostly black cover on that. So, and I think that is all. That's all the prompts I was able to fulfill for this round of Adventureathon. Okay, this next readathon I have to tell you about is the Everbloom Academy. And I did not complete every prompt. It was not mandatory. There are some prompts that were more mandatory than others, and those ones I prioritized over the ones that were not. So the Everbloom Academy, it was created and hosted by Meaghan from Meg Reads on YouTube, and this is year 1, semester 1. And my understanding is that what you go through now will affect your future paths. So I wanted to make sure my options were wide open. So I did what I could. So you have your basic classes that everyone has to do. So number 1 is Arcane Ethics. This is to read a book that teaches you a lesson or features good versus evil. For this one, I went with A Kind of Spark by Elle McNoll. This is a middle grade. The author is autistic. The main character is autistic, so it is on Voices. This takes place in Scotland. And I would say this definitely teaches you a lesson, and more people should read this, in my opinion, because there's a lot of comparing how women were treated during when there was a lot of witch trials going on where they were accused of being witchcraft just because they were different. And it's like, if I lived at that time, I would have been accused of being witchcraft because I'm autistic, and so I was different than every neurotypical person. And that's the point that she makes. So that a lot of people can learn something from this, and I love the parallels that the character made in this book. Number 2 was Geography of Everbloom Academy. This is to read a book with a map or that has travel words. Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. You would not expect it, but there is, at one point, a map in here. Let me see if I can find it. It's past the halfway point. It's when they finally have the path of the neighborhood of where this missing boy could have gone. It's a map. Where is it? Not that. Oh, there it is. It's on page 244. Right there. There's a map. So it has a map in the story. This is book number 2 in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I was very happy when I saw it had a map so I could fulfill that prompt. That was the only one that I was like going, I don't know if it's going to work. And it was the only one that I was like, probably was not going to get done in time, but I did, thanks to this book. So that's book number 2 in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Prompt number 3 is History of Magic. This is to read a book featuring magic and 4 Charming Spells by Lynn Cahoon. This is book number 4 in a Kitchen Witch mystery series, and she's a kitchen witch, so she has magical abilities. So, yeah, I like that. I love that series. Number 4, Ancient Languages. This is to read a book that is translated or has 5 or more words in the title. This fulfills both of them because it has 5 words in the title. A Story of 7 Lives by Shirakawa Jin. And this is also translated from Japanese. So if you don't want to count it starting with a or a, it's translated. So either way it fits, in my opinion. So this is a manga, and again, translated from Japanese. Next is Magi Botany, I think is how she said it. This is to read a book that features plants. I went with this one, The Complete Cheese Sweet Home, part number 3 by Konami Kanata. There are plants throughout this book, and there's a scene in this where the cats climb a tree and have trouble getting down. They're looking in bushes, cats hiding in bushes. So the plants do play a big part in this because the cat's hiding them, they climb the trees and everything. So I went with that one. Okay. The next one category is the Department of Magical Studies. If for whatever career path you're thinking you want to do. So in case I do want to go for this one, I did fulfill the prompt, which was Communicating with Nature, and this is to read a book with nature on the cover. I went with Sleigh Bells and Slaughter by Alina Jacobs. If I remember the cover right, there's trees and there's a house on fire, but there's nature because it's trees or some kind of plant. If I wanted to do the Department of Supernatural Investigation, the prompt was Amateur Surveillance. This is to read a book that features thieves, spies, or a mystery thriller. I did fulfill this one. I decided to go with The Risk by S.T. Abbey. It's book number 1 in the Mindfuck series. And it's a definite female vengeance character, and she spies on men to get her revenge. She has to spy on them to learn their routine, so I'm counting it. And those are the career paths. So I can choose whatever career path. So I'm like, I've got to do that so I know so that I know I have leeway and can kind of really think about the prompts and decide what I want to do. Okay, so the next category is electives. And there are 4 prompts. I only did 1 elective. And the elective I did was Music Craft. And this is to read a book featuring music. I went with A Man and His Cat Volume 3 Features music. He's a pianist. He plays. They actually go to a concert with another pianist. He has a panic attack at one point. But yeah, he's a famous pianist where he lives. So it does feature music. Music is a big part in this series. And then there was also an extra credit, and that was to do the buddy group read. And I own that book, but I ran out of time and did not get to do the extra credit. So those are all of the prompts I did complete for the Everbloom Academy. Meaghan did a great job coming up with those prompts, and I look forward to the next semester. I think it'll be, because this one was year 1, semester 1, so I don't know if the next one will be year 2, semester 1, or if it'll be year 1, semester 2. I'm not quite sure how she's going to do that, but I do look forward to seeing how this readathon will go. So yes, I'm excited. Okay, we are on the last readathon for this particular video. This is a series September, and there are some prompts, and then as long as you just read a series, whether it's the start of a series or end of a series or middle of a series, as long as the book is in a series, you've fulfilled the readathon. This was hosted by Krista from Books and Jams and Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand. Like the ink was showing through, and so I couldn't read the ink that's on the one side on my paper. There was a 3x3 bingo card, and so the prompts were optional, and then you interpret the prompts however you want, whether it's going exactly as it is as a genre. Like one of the prompts is mystery, and so you can go as you don't know a lot going into it, so it's a mystery with what the book is about. You don't know anything, and then it could be a romance, it could be whatever genre, or you went with a mystery book. So you could go with the prompts. So let me tell you what I read for this. I did do a blackout. I completed all the prompts, plus some books. So prompt number 1 on the bingo board was mystery. I went with a contemporary. It was not a mystery book. I went with the contemporary because I don't know what this book was about. I went with Secrets, written by underneath Kate William, which is a pen name for a bunch of various people. This series is written by ghostwriters, but the world is created by Francine Pascal, and this is book number 1 in the Sweet Valley High series. So the books in the Sweet Valley High series, yes, the world is by Francine Pascal, but they are written by ghostwriters. So, and I classified this one as a mystery because I didn't know what to expect going into it. I remember the Sweet Valley series being talked about in the 90s when I was a child. I was born in 1983, so preteen, early teen years, I do remember hearing a lot about these, about the early to mid 90s and how people talked up the characters. I was very interested in it, but then I haven't heard anything since I was like 14 years old. I haven't heard anything about it up until now, being 40 years old. Don't hear people talking about it. So I didn't remember anything, and I didn't know anything about going into this book. So yeah. So it was the contents were a mystery to me. Number 2, historical fiction. I went with, however you wanted to interpret that, I went with A Man and His Cat, volume number 3 by Umi Sakurai. Sakurai? That's because I said this fulfills the historical element because you get flashbacks. This man reflects on his past. So there are historical elements in this guy's past as far as why he's having certain panic attacks. He's reflecting on his past with his wife, his past with his career. So that's what I'm going with. I say it counts. Number 3 is the prompt guide is fantasy or science fiction. This definitely has fantastical elements. I went with Black Butler volume number 2 by Jona Toboso. I'm thoroughly enjoying this series. I didn't like this one as much as the first book. The first one I gave 5 stars. This one I gave 4 stars. So I still really enjoyed it, but not as much as the first one. And I'm kind of thinking that the Black Butler guy in this is like some kind of an alien. I don't know. I could be way wrong on that, but that's the vibe I get. But this definitely has fantastical elements, and I think it is, fantasy is one of the tags on Goodreads. So anyway, number 4 is contemporary. So I went with a book that was set in modern day. I did an ebook. I went with The Risk by S.T. Abbey, which is book number 1 in the Mindfuck series. Female Vengeance, modern day female vengeance. Yeah. kick-ass female. I do like a good female vengeance story. I'm finding I really do enjoy that. If that trope is in there, I don't need to know anything else. I am there for it. So yeah, The Risk. Really enjoyed that one. Number 5 was a free space. I still fit in a book because that's what I like to do, even though it's a free space. I figure it's a free for all. I can read whatever age, whatever type of book, I can do whatever for it. And so the book I fit in for that was A Man and His Cat, volume number 2 by Umi Sakurai. Yeah, it's a free space and I put it in there. So, and these you could read in any order. So, yeah. Number 6, the suggestion is romance, which I did do with a romance. Go with a romance. I went with Teacher of the Year by M.A. Wardle. This is book number 1 in the Teachers in Love series. As you can tell, it is 2 men on the cover. And yes, this is a queer romance. It is very sweet. It has very sweet moments. However, it is very spicy as well. So there are sexually explicit language and scenes, so sexually explicit content. So just beware going into this. This is Marvin and this is Olin. I keep wanting to say something else, but I finally got the O in my head. Now I was wanting to say Odell, but it's Olin. And for a long time I wanted to say his name started with a B, like Brian or something. I don't know, but it's Olin. But this time I was thinking Odell, and I knew that wasn't right. And this is Marvin. Marvin is a Jewish teacher. He is gay, and he is Olin. See, I said Odell. Olin is an engineer, and so it's a romance between the two. Marvin is a kindergarten teacher, and Olin's daughter is right here on the back, and she is a little cutie patootie in this book. So, yeah. So just, it is spicy. I learned some new words. Sexually explicit words. I learned some new words. I'm gonna leave it at that. Okay. Let's see. The next prompt suggestion is middle grade. And this, I would say middle graders can definitely read this. I don't know if it's classified as a middle grade. One of the main characters in this is a child that's like less than 5, I want to say, or less than 8, definitely. So maybe closer to 3 or 5. I think like 5 years old. But middle graders can definitely enjoy this. There's nothing you have to worry about censoring in this series as far as language or sexual content, and it's just about this mom, dad, and their little boy adopting and taking care of a cat. So yes, so this is the complete Cheese Sweet Home Part 3, prompt number 8. I skipped a prompt. I tend to do that. But yeah, okay. Here we go. It's right here. The book is right here. Prompt number 4, or not 4, number 7 that I skipped was horror. And for that one I went with the Complete Cheese Sweet Home Part number 4. And the reason why I say this is not a horror book by any stretch. It's a contemporary, it's lighthearted. But the reason why I say it's a horror is it contained a fear of mine. Not thalassophobia, not fear of spiders. I am very much a cat person, and I fear any hurt, any harm coming to my cat, Molly and Polly, to my 2 kittens, my kitty cats, my fur babies. Even my mom's dog, Georgie, I love him enough. I fear any harm coming to him or them getting lost or taken by someone else. And that fear is in this book. Not of necessarily the harm, but of, I can't really say without spoiling, but the potential to, there is one line in this that the family is possibly going to be moving to France due to the man's career change. And so there's a fear of this cat being basically left behind. And I'm not going to say the reasons as to why the cat would have to be left behind in Japan while they move to France, but that is a fear of mine, having to leave somewhere and not have my kittens anymore. Yeah, so that's a definite horror fear of mine. So that definitely counts in my opinion, because that was very unsettling for me to read. Okay, now back on track. Number 9 is thriller. I went with a book that I am thrilled to pick up, and this series is very thrilling to me. I love this, and every time the next book in the series has been announced, I've always pre-ordered that book as soon as I have found out. So I went with 4 Charming Spells by Lynn Cahoon. This is book number 4 in a Kitchen Witch cozy mystery series. Love this. Then Mia owns a catering business called Mia's Morsels. This takes place in a small town in Idaho. She is a kitchen witch, so she does have magical abilities. You also have ghosts. In one of the books, you have werewolves. I love this. Cozy mysteries, and this is a genuine cozy mystery. It follows the standard cozy mystery formula, and you don't have to worry about sexually explicit language. I mean, you may have the shit or damn once out of the whole, maybe twice out of the whole book, and that's it. And I don't think those are even in here. So, yeah. Very clean, don't have to worry about sexual explicit content as well. I thoroughly love this series. I was very thrilled to pick up. Every book in this series got a 5-star, and this was no exception to me. Absolutely loved this series. Still a 5-star. There are now 6 books out in the series, and I am hoping to get to books number 5 and 6 in the series in October, so this month. And the 6th book was actually arrived at my house this month, so it was released this month. So hopefully there will be a book 7, and as soon as, if there is, and as soon as I see an announcement video or announcement post for book number 7, if there will be a 7, I will be pre-ordering that book, guaranteed. And those are all the prompts, so I got a blackout, but I still read some more series. So I read the prequel to a series, and because it's the prequel to a series, I am counting it. And it was only 8 pages, but I read Compulsory by Martha Wells, which is the prequel to the Murderbot Diaries, written by, again, Martha Wells, and I had a great time with it. And I was intimidated by this series. I thought I would like it, but there's a lot of hype around it and this author, so I was a little leery with it because sometimes the more hype there is, the less I tend to enjoy it. But I absolutely love the prequel, so now I have high hopes going into book number 1 in the series. The next book in a series that I read was Horror Hotel, written by 2 authors, Victoria Fulton and Faith McLaren. This is a horror young adult, and I gave this one 4 stars, and it is the book 1 in a series, and it might just be a duology. I can't remember if book 2 is out yet or is to be released. I don't know yet. But I had a great time with this one, and I'm actually tempted to get my own copy. I read this via ebook, but now I'm kind of wanting my own physical copy. I enjoyed it that much, so yeah. And then I started another series, and I read Parasite by Meaghan Grant. Meaghan Grant is the pen name for Seanan McGuire. So if you like the Wayward Children series, those are more magical realism. Meaghan Grant does sci-fi horror. So completely different genre type. This is human bodies and parasites inside the human body. And I loved it. 5 stars. I've enjoyed everything underneath the pen name of Meaghan Grant. I did try a Wayward Children series book, the first one, and maybe it wasn't the right time. Because I love Meaghan Grant so much, or the books underneath Meaghan Grant, I am willing to try the Wayward Children series again. But it's magical realism, and I tend to struggle with magical realism. But sometimes I don't, and I do well with it. I think it just depends on how much it's in the book. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet, but sometimes, a lot of the times I do struggle with it. But I just love Meaghan Grant, and so I'm really wanting to love the things written underneath Seanan McGuire because it's the same freaking person. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to love every book by an author, but I really want to like the Wayward Children series because I love Meaghan Grant. So, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. I also read The Embers of Phoenix, which is book number 1 in a series of werewolf shifter romance, and it is a why choose romance, and it is very spicy, so please use caution going into it. But yeah, shifter werewolf romance, and you do have people that are hunting the werewolves, trying to eradicate them. So you have werewolf hunters as well. And then finally, the last book I did for the series September is not the start of a series. It is also not the end of a series, but it is a continuation. Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is book number 2 in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. And there are 3 books in this. This is a trilogy, but there is a prequel. So technically there's 4 books in this series. But I like this one. Not as much as the first one, and that tends to be the common thread that I hear. The book number 1, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I enjoyed it so much I gave it a 5 stars. This one got a 4 stars. So I still really enjoyed it, but it didn't quite hit that 5-star level for me. So anyway, thoroughly enjoyed it. And those are the books that I read for series September. So I tend to read quite a bit of series. My problem is just continuing on. consistently in a series. So yeah, let me know if you participated in series September and what your favorite series was that you read in the month of September. Talk to me in the comment section below, because that is it for this video. Until next time, stay true to yourself and enjoy a good book, and I will talk to you later.